It's over. After years of silence, rumors, and denial, the fairy tale that once captivated the world has shattered behind palace doors. But the shock isn't just that Prince Harry has finally decided to walk away, it's that the entire royal family stood with him when he did. For months, whispers echoed through Windsor's cold halls. He's had enough. And now that whisper has become a royal verdict. What happened inside those secret meetings? Why did King Charles, Prince William, and even the late Princess Diana's closest friends agree that this was the only way out? And what could have pushed the once defiant Prince Harry to finally say no more? Insiders claim there's a file, unseen, sealed within palace archives, that changed everything. Meghan's name is all over it. Some call it a betrayal, others a survival move. But one thing is clear, this is not just a breakup, it's the collapse of a royal illusion. Because when a man raised to protect the crown decides to protect his peace instead, the monarchy itself trembles. Stay with me. What you're about to hear will rewrite everything you thought you knew about the House of Windsor. The decision didn't come overnight. Behind palace walls, silence grew heavier with every passing week. What began as private concern had turned into quiet resolve. Sources close to the royal family describe it as the unthinkable finally becoming inevitable. For years, Prince Harry fought to prove that his marriage could survive the weight of two worlds, one built on tradition, the other on rebellion. But that balance shattered the moment the family gathered for what insiders now call the Windsor Summit. It wasn't public, it wasn't official, and yet everyone who mattered was there. King Charles, Prince William, even senior advisors who had been instructed never to speak Harry's name out loud anymore. The meeting lasted 5 hours. No phones. No aides. Just the men who once represented the future of the monarchy, now facing the wreckage of its most controversial chapter. By the end of that night, a single sentence had been spoken that changed everything. He has to walk away. And for the first time, Harry didn't argue. Insiders say William was the first to speak. Calm, measured, but direct. You can't protect her and destroy yourself at the same time. It was a brother's warning, not a royal order. But for Harry, it hit harder than any headline ever could. Because in that single line, William said what the rest of the world had whispered for years, that the man who once fought for love had become trapped by it. Palace staff recall how Charles sat quietly, fingers pressed against his lips, eyes lowered. This wasn't just about image anymore. It was about legacy, the one thing the king had spent a lifetime defending. A senior courtier later described the mood in one chilling phrase: it felt like a funeral for a marriage. The palace corridors, once buzzing with preparations for royal events, had grown ghostly. Meghan's name had become taboo. Her photos were quietly removed from the private family gallery. Even the royal press office, usually forbidden from commenting on private matters, was told to prepare for controlled messaging. The family knew what this meant. If Harry was ready to end it, the world would turn it into war. And yet, there was no shouting, no anger, just exhaustion. Harry, the same man who had once told cameras love always wins, now sat at the edge of a long oak table, staring at a folder that bore his own initials. Inside were drafts. Legal drafts. Not from Meghan. From him. The paperwork had been in preparation for weeks, quietly handled by a London legal team under royal confidentiality. According to one insider, Harry had requested the documents, just in case. That case had arrived. Behind the scenes, Meghan had already sensed the shift. Her team in California began limiting joint appearances. Brand partners were told schedules are being reassessed. Paparazzi photos showed her arriving alone, smiling wider than usual, the kind of smile people wear when they're losing control, but can't afford to show it. Online, the reaction was instant. Hashtags like #RoyalSeparation and #WindsorDivorce began trending within hours of the first leak. Fans split into camps, Team Harry versus Team Meghan, while global networks speculated whether the monarchy would survive another public scandal. But what the world didn't see was how deep the fracture really ran. Harry's relationship with his father had quietly healed in recent months. Private calls, short visits, cautious but sincere. Those calls became the foundation for something bigger: reconciliation. And that reconciliation came with clarity. For years, Harry had fought the crown. Now he realized he'd been fighting the wrong enemy. It wasn't the institution that broke him. It was the illusion he'd built around Meghan. One friend described it bluntly: he didn't fall out of love. He woke up. The trigger, according to multiple insiders, was a confidential report from palace auditors. It had nothing to do with tabloids, nothing to do with fame. It was about trust. Financial transfers, PR agreements, and charity fund allocations. A few small inconsistencies, but enough to raise eyebrows. When Harry confronted Meghan, the conversation reportedly spiraled. She accused him of betrayal, a source revealed. He told her he was done living in a documentary. That night, Harry moved out of their shared Montecito estate guest house quietly, without cameras, without a statement. For a man raised under flashbulbs, silence was his loudest rebellion yet. Meanwhile, inside the UK, the royal family prepared for impact. King Charles ordered internal communications to remain consistent. "We support Harry's decision and wish for his peace." No spin, no shade, just finality. But not everyone was calm. Palace insiders claimed that Princess Anne was furious, not with Harry, but with how long it had taken. "We let this go too far," she allegedly said. Now the institution is paying for one woman's performance. Even Queen Camilla, known for her guarded diplomacy, was reportedly overheard telling a confidant, "We've given her enough second acts. The curtain must fall." And so, the curtain did fall. The next morning, Harry's legal team in London received the go-ahead. The documents were filed under strict anonymity. It would take days before the news reached public channels, but the palace already knew. A royal marriage had ended before the world even realized it was dying. As the clock struck midnight in Windsor, Harry stood at the palace window, watching the rain hit the cobblestones below. He wasn't the prince in exile anymore. He was something else now, a man reclaiming his voice. And yet, a single question haunted everyone inside those gilded walls. If Meghan had been the cause of the chaos, what secret had finally convinced Harry to walk away? Because according to one palace aide, the truth behind his decision wasn't just emotional. It was dangerous. When dawn broke over London, the news hadn't hit the tabloids yet, but the palace was already on high alert. Every department head, from communications to legal, had been briefed with a single directive: control the narrative before it controls us. But what no one could control was what was already in motion. By mid-morning, a single word started echoing across encrypted royal emails: finalized. Insiders confirmed that this was the moment Prince Harry officially signed the preliminary divorce petition. It wasn't just a signature, it was a statement, one that reverberated through Buckingham like a ghost returning home. The royal aides who had once watched him leave with Meghan's hand in his knew this time he wasn't coming back with her. King Charles reportedly received the message while reviewing state documents at Clarence House. He paused, read the single sentence update twice, and then quietly placed the folder aside. Those in the room said he didn't speak for almost 10 minutes. Then, with a tone more resigned than angry, he said, "Then we must protect him this time, no matter the noise." It was the same fatherly instinct that Diana had once embodied, the urge to shield Harry from the consequences of his own heart. Only this time, it wasn't paparazzi chasing him. It was truth. By afternoon, private conversations began between palace press advisors and British broadcasters. Leaks were inevitable. All they could do was control the tone. "We'll call it an emotional separation," said one strategist. Not a divorce yet. But across the Atlantic, Meghan's team had already gone into overdrive. PR agents, lawyers, stylists, and brand managers were instructed to hold statements and avoid reactive posts. Still, subtle moves didn't go unnoticed. Hours after the royal leak, Meghan was photographed arriving at an LA wellness center, smiling, dressed in white, coffee in hand. The headlines wrote themselves. Meghan Markle steps out amid Harry's split rumors, looking unbothered. But for the first time, the audience didn't buy it. Comment sections flooded with speculation. "She looks too happy," one user wrote. "She knows this is coming," another replied. Hashtags like hashtag Team Harry and hashtag Royal Justice trended for hours. The narrative that had once cast Meghan as the victim began to reverse. The sympathy shifted to him. Inside the palace, William and Kate played a quieter role. According to one source, William reached out to Harry privately for the first time in months. No press release, no cameras, just two brothers reconnecting through the cracks of a royal disaster. "You're still my brother," William reportedly texted. "Just remember who you were before all this." Those words hit Harry harder than any public opinion ever could. He spent that night alone at a friend's countryside estate in Berkshire, where sources say he watched old footage of himself and William laughing together during their army years. He wasn't nostalgic, the friend said later. He was grieving the man he used to be. Meanwhile, behind palace curtains, one particular name kept surfacing: Soho House. The same exclusive network that had once connected Meghan to Hollywood's elite and, allegedly, to Harry himself, was suddenly under scrutiny again. A palace insider claims new information resurfaced, tying Meghan's early networking years to individuals now under quiet investigation for financial misconduct. The connection wasn't direct, but it was enough to spark unease. It wasn't about criminality, it was about trust. And in the royal family, trust is currency. Charles's advisors warned him, if that link becomes public, it will destroy what little credibility remains. But to the king's surprise, Harry wasn't shaken. He had already seen the documents. According to a royal aide, Harry confronted Meghan weeks before the summit with the findings. Her reaction was explosive. She accused him of being fed lies by palace loyalists and demanded he choose a side. That confrontation reportedly ended with Harry walking out of their California home, no security, no driver, just his phone and his silence. And that silence said everything. Within days, palace lawyers received word that Harry had formally requested guidance on privacy clauses and marital termination under royal statute. That's bureaucratic language for, how do I end this without another war? When the public found out, it wasn't through a statement. It was through what looked like an accident, a deleted Instagram story from a royal staffer showing the edge of a confidential file stamped Windsor Family Legal. The post vanished within minutes, but the screenshots didn't. By the time evening fell, global outlets had one headline on repeat: Prince Harry prepares divorce filing, palace sources confirm. The internet exploded. YouTube analysts, TikTok, body language experts, and royal historians turned into digital detectives overnight. Every glance, every gesture from past interviews was reanalyzed frame by frame. One clip from 2022, where Harry glanced nervously toward Meghan after being asked a personal question, went viral again. Commenters captioned it, "He already knew then." But even in chaos, Harry remained silent. Instead, palace staff reported something eerie that week. Harry had returned to Windsor for a private stay, but he didn't bring his usual entourage. No cameras, no friends, just him and a small box of personal items, including a few of his mother's handwritten notes. He spent hours in her old sitting room, said one insider. He kept whispering she'd understand. That image of Diana's son seeking solace in her shadow spread like wildfire across the internet. Fans called it the heir's redemption arc. For the first time in years, public sympathy aligned with him, not against him. Meanwhile, Meghan's world began to wobble. Her new podcast sponsor quietly paused the next season. A major fashion label dropped their pending collaboration. The headlines that once celebrated her independence now labeled her isolated. And behind the scenes, Harry's divorce filing gained momentum. Legal insiders confirmed that a sealed petition had been lodged under his personal initials, with language citing irreconcilable circumstances impacting personal peace and mental stability. It wasn't dramatic, it was deliberate. Because Harry didn't want revenge. He wanted closure. The royal family, however, knew that closure for Harry meant chaos for them. If Meghan chose to retaliate, she could reopen every wound the crown had spent decades hiding. That's why King Charles quietly assembled a crisis council, 5 of his most trusted advisors, including legal heads and PR strategists. Their goal, Make the separation look peaceful, no matter the storm. But the storm was already here. On the night of November 3rd, an American talk show host accidentally mentioned that Meghan had been consulting high-profile divorce lawyers. Within hours, TMZ and Daily Mail ran synchronized stories. Meghan prepares countermove, they claimed. Yet, those close to her insisted it wasn't strategy, it was survival. She had been warned that once the royal machine moved, it wouldn't stop until her image was rewritten. And perhaps that's what Harry feared the most. Not losing Meghan, but watching the woman he once loved become an enemy he'd have to publicly destroy. By the end of that week, the palace prepared a statement labeled Family Adjustment Period. It was short, emotionless, and vague, just like the monarchy itself. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are navigating a private period of personal reflection. The family remains supportive and united. But those 12 words couldn't hide what was really happening. Because according to two senior correspondents, Harry's legal team had already been instructed to finalize paperwork before year's end. And for the first time since their wedding day, the royal calendar listed his name alone, without hers. The silence from Montecito was deafening. And as royal fans stared at their screens, wondering how a love story once called modern royalty could end like this, one insider whispered the words that sent chills through every newsroom. The world woke up to headlines that read like the ending of a royal saga. Prince Harry files for divorce, royal family in full support. It wasn't a rumor anymore. It was real. After years of whispers, speculation, and public silence, Prince Harry had finally taken the one step no one believed he would. He walked away from the woman who once walked beside him into history. But the story didn't end with paperwork. It was only beginning. Behind closed doors, Buckingham Palace had shifted into what insiders call Operation Reclaim. Every public statement, every photograph, every quiet leak was now part of a larger narrative to restore the image of the monarchy and to reintroduce Prince Harry not as a rebel, but as a son returning home. Palace aides described the atmosphere as strangely bittersweet. There was sadness, yes, but also relief. "It feels like he's breathing again," said one longtime attendant who had served both Diana and her sons. For years, he looked like a man underwater. Now, it's like he's finally come up for air. In the following days, royal reporters began noticing subtle shifts. The official website quietly replaced Meghan's profile photo with a crest, no statement, no explanation, just absence. At Windsor, Harry's personal suite was reopened and discreetly refurbished. Even the royal security unit was told to prepare for partial reinstatement. But perhaps the most symbolic moment came at Balmoral. Family sources confirm that King Charles requested a private ceremony at the Scottish estate, no cameras, no press, just family, to mark what he reportedly called a new beginning. William, Kate, and Camilla all were there. And when Harry arrived, those who witnessed it say the silence broke into tears before words did. For the first time in years, the brothers embraced. No microphones, no royal script, just two men who had fought, broken, and finally found their way back. It wasn't forgiveness, said one aide. It was recognition. They'd both lost too much to keep pretending. The king, who had aged decades in the past few years, reportedly told Harry something that struck every soul in the room. The crown is not worth a son. It never was. It was a moment of humanity beneath centuries of tradition, the kind of raw truth that no press release could ever capture. But while the palace moved toward healing, the other side of the Atlantic began to unravel. In Montecito, Meghan's inner circle grew quiet. Her team stopped taking calls. Paparazzi photos showed her entering and leaving her mansion alone, her expression uncharacteristically somber. Even her most loyal allies, Hollywood producers, socialites, and publicists, started keeping their distance. The woman once described as America's princess was suddenly being referred to as Hollywood's shadow. The press that once celebrated her independence now dissected her silence. Every move, every coffee run, every glance, every ignored question was treated like evidence in a public trial. "This is what she feared most," said one former associate. Not being hated, being forgotten. Meanwhile, Harry's decision had ignited something deeper across Britain. Newspapers called it the return of the spare. Crowds gathered outside Windsor Castle holding banners that read, "Welcome home, Harry." For the first time since leaving royal life, he wasn't being criticized, he was being celebrated. But the celebration came with consequences. Behind the scenes, Meghan's legal representatives began crafting a counter-narrative. Leaks to American outlets suggested that Harry had been pressured by royal forces into filing, painting him once again as a victim of palace manipulation. Yet, within hours, British media struck back, releasing carefully worded statements from royal insiders denying the claim. And then came the leak. A mysterious file began circulating among international journalists, a digital copy of Harry's confidential divorce petition. It wasn't the full document, but the fragments were enough to light a firestorm. In one section, Harry reportedly wrote, "I wish for privacy, not revenge. I have loved deeply, but I can no longer live inside a narrative that isn't mine." Those 16 words spread across the internet like wildfire. They weren't angry. They weren't bitter. They were honest. Fans reposted the line with captions like, "Harry's peace era begins and Diana's son finally free." Meanwhile, palace insiders claimed that Meghan's PR team was desperately trying to trace who leaked the file. But it was too late. The world had already chosen its headline, Harry's Freedom Letter. Within days, Harry appeared publicly for the first time since the announcement, not in a royal setting, but at a charity event in London supporting mental health awareness. Gone were the suits tailored by palace designers. Instead, he wore a simple black shirt and spoke without notes. And when a journalist asked if he was okay, he smiled genuinely, maybe for the first time in years, and replied, "I'm finding my way back to who I was before all the noise." That clip went viral instantly. Within hours, the hashtag Finding Harry was trending worldwide. But while Harry's new beginning inspired millions, the monarchy was bracing for the aftershocks. Because Meghan wasn't done yet. According to sources close to her team, a documentary pitch titled The Price of Silence had been quietly circulating in Los Angeles, a tell-all project promising to reveal the truth behind palace manipulation and the emotional cost of royal life. The timing was no coincidence. It was her counterattack. However, something unexpected happened. No major studio picked it up. Executives feared backlash from royal supporters and advertisers. The same Hollywood that once opened its doors to Meghan was now politely stepping away. "She's become too controversial to ensure," one insider told Variety. In the end, Meghan's weapon was silence, but so was Harry's. The difference was his silence healed him, hers haunted her. Weeks later, a small crowd gathered at St. George's Chapel, the same place where they had once said, "I do." This time, the event was private. A service for reflection and restoration. Harry attended with his father and brother, standing before the altar where his marriage began. No cameras, no choir, no press, just stillness. He placed a single white rose on the pew, the same flower Diana had carried in her final portrait. For him, it wasn't a gesture of loss. It was closure. Later that night, Harry was seen leaving Windsor Castle under a soft drizzle, his car headlights cutting through the mist. In the rearview mirror, the castle lights shimmered faintly, a kingdom that had both broken and rebuilt him. Back in London, news anchors tried to summarize what had just happened. But no one could, because this wasn't just a royal divorce, it was a generational shift. For the first time in modern history, a prince had chosen peace over protocol, freedom over fear. Experts called it Diana's legacy fulfilled. And in the end, as the storm calmed, Buckingham released one final statement, brief, human, and painfully honest. The family stands with the Duke of Sussex as he begins this new chapter. Love remains, even in distance. That single line broke the internet. Not because it was official, but because it sounded real. In the silence that followed, one thing became clear. The monarchy would survive, but it would never be the same. As for Meghan, her silence deepened. Friends say she's focusing on her children and rebuilding her brand privately. But others claim she's planning something even more dramatic, a memoir, one that could rewrite everything again. And yet, across oceans and headlines, Harry remains steady. The boy who once walked behind his mother's coffin, the man who defied the crown for love, now walks toward his own redemption alone, but finally free. He may have lost a marriage, but he found his voice. And maybe that's what Diana wanted all along, not for her son to wear the crown, but to understand his worth without it. Because sometimes freedom doesn't roar, it whispers. And if you listen closely, you can hear it echo through Windsor tonight. So here we are, the end of a royal chapter that began as a fairy tale and ended as a mirror of reality. A prince who gave up his title for love now walks away from that same love to reclaim himself. What started as rebellion has turned into revelation. And what the world once called a scandal might just be a salvation. The palace hasn't said everything, and maybe they never will. But behind those golden gates, something has changed forever. Because this time, it wasn't the institution that silenced him. It was Harry himself who chose to speak through action. And in doing so, he became what every royal fears most: unpredictable, uncontained, and finally, free. And while Meghan faces a world that once adored her but now questions everything, the truth remains: no one truly wins in stories like this. Not the crown, not the couple, not the audience watching from afar. What remains is the echo of what could have been, and the lesson that, even in palaces, love isn't immune to pride, pain, or power. But perhaps this isn't the end. Perhaps it's the beginning of the real story, one where Harry isn't defined by the headlines, the family feud, or the woman who changed everything. Maybe it's about finding peace in the quiet after the storm. Because sometimes, the most powerful act of love is letting go. If you believe Harry deserves peace after years of chaos, share this story. Spread it. Let the world see that even princes bleed, and even fairy tales can break. Stay with us, because in the world of power, silence, and secrets, every ending hides a new beginning. And in the halls of Windsor tonight, that silence is louder than ever.